Well, hello again. I'm happy you're joining me for another devotional. My name is Marco Arroyo, the preacher with the Seagoville Church of Christ in Seagoville, Texas. And we're going to be in Psalm 73 for today's devotional. If you'll join me there to Psalm 73. You know, it was interesting. Recently, I was thinking about youth problems, issues that face young people. I mean, a lot of the time, there are certain sins and certain struggles and hardships that we talk about. And we know that they're pretty... almost exclusively young people problems a lot of the time. There are situations where, or not exclusively, but a lot of the time there are certain sins and things you struggle with that most people that are older and adults or more mature and grown up, they don't really struggle with. However, there are sins and difficulties people have that it seems that they span the struggle or the struggles, span the entirety of your life. I think there are specific things that we have to wrestle with for all of our lives, no matter how young or how old we are. Certain things that just don't go away with age, and we just need to keep on fighting those things off as much as we possibly can. One of those, for example, is struggles with the tongue and the words that we choose. We're always going to be speaking in life, and we're always going to have struggles sometimes to determine what word is correct or what word is not in a certain situation, or what we should say or what we shouldn't say. We always wrestle with the tongue. James chapter 3 says that's the reality for everyone. But another one I think doesn't get a lot of a mention by us and just by people in general sometimes is the one that we find in Psalm 73. Have you ever felt jealous or envious of people who are not living for God? Have you ever looked at people who are not trying to serve God, not trying to do what's right, no real concern for that? And it seems that just everywhere they go, everything that they do prospers, and their lives are so much easier, so much better, it might even feel sometimes. The psalmist here, Psalm 73 is attributed to Asaph, actually had that struggle. And he says, "Truly God is good to Israel, to such as are pure in heart. But as for me, my feet had almost stumbled. My steps had nearly slipped, for I was envious of the boastful." And he says, "For there are no pangs in their death, but their strength is firm. They are not in trouble as other men, nor are they plagued like other men. Therefore pride serves as their necklace. Violence covers them like a garment. Their eyes bulge with abundance. They have more than heart could wish." Not only that, they scoff and speak wickedly concerning oppression. They speak loftily. They set their mouth against the heavens, and their tongue walks through the earth. And so it says here, essentially, those people who are not trying to do what's right, they're not servants of God. They're not trying to please God. It seems that everything about them, they're just blessed. They're just so prosperous. It's interesting, even what he says in verse number 4. There are no pangs in their death. Even if they are to die, it seems like even that is perfect for them. It seems like even that is easy for them. Even death, their strength is firm. And unlike me, they're not in trouble. They're not plagued. They don't have hardships. And he says, something that they should be ashamed of, pride, it's their necklace. Something that they shouldn't be, violent, it's their garment. They wear it on themselves. They have so much. They're so prosperous. Their eyes are bulging with abundance. It's as if they have so much food in their mouth. Their eyes are popping out of their heads. They have more than heart could wish, he says there in verse number 7. And they do whatever they want. There are times where as Christians, because of the sacrifice and the hardship that is living for God, we can see people who are not trying to do that and almost be jealous of them and wish that we had their lives. And it's thoughts like that. It's thoughts like that cause so many Christians to turn away from God, especially during difficult times. It's thoughts like that cause Christians and people who should be serving God to trust in themselves or to trust in other people who are not godly, who are not, a good godly example and giving godly wisdom and instruction, but to trust in other people because, just their lives seem so much easier instead of trusting in God and what God says and then confiding in examples of people who are serving and following God. So he talks about this struggle that he has. And he says in verse number 13, "Surely I have cleansed my heart in vain and washed my hands in innocence. For all day long I have been plagued and chastened every morning. If I had said, I will speak thus, behold, I would have been true to the generation of your children. When I thought how to understand this, it was too painful for me. So you notice what he says here. He reaches a point where he starts to doubt in a very serious way what he's doing. Am I wasting my time? There are times when our struggles that we have because we're trying to do God's will and follow Him, be obedient to Him, faithful, where that journey will cause us to start to wonder, am I wasting my time? Is this what I really want? Is this really what I want? And it'll especially be because we're comparing ourselves to others. We're comparing ourselves to those who are not trying to do what's right. We're saying, maybe that's what I want. Maybe I want the comfort. Maybe I want the ease. Maybe I want the simplicity of it. Just do whatever you want. Do whatever makes you happy. However you want to react, just react that way. Sometimes we can feel that way. But notice what he says. After he says in verse number 16, it was too painful for me, he says, until I went into the sanctuary of God, then I understood their end. He says here, what woke me up was realizing that, yeah, things may be easy for them now. They may be seemingly living these lives of ease now, but the end matters. And really what we can think about for the end here is a representation of consequences of actions. I understood, he's saying, the consequences of what they're doing. You know, we're all, and I've said this in sermons many times before, we're all free to do whatever we want, but we are most certainly not free from the consequences of doing whatever we want. Whether you do evil or you do good, you are not free from the consequences. You're going to receive just consequences for what you do, whether good or evil. 2 Corinthians 5, verse number 10 teaches exactly that. About the judgment of Jesus Christ, we're all going to receive the things done in the body, whether good or bad, at the judgment seat of Christ, when Jesus judges us. And so when he talks about these people, he says, surely you set them in slippery places. You cast them down to destruction. Oh, how they are brought to desolation, as in a moment they are utterly consumed with terrors. And so you notice this, their end is terrible. The punishment for what they're doing is so terrible. I should want nothing to do with this. And so he starts to wake up when he realizes the reality here. And he says in Psalm 21, thus my heart was grieved and I was vexed in my mind. And he says, I was so foolish and ignorant. I was like a beast before you. It's like I had the brain of an animal. Nevertheless, I am continually with you. You hold me by my right hand. You will guide me with your counsel, and afterward receive me to glory. And I love what he says here. One of the most beautiful verses in all the Bible. Whom have I in heaven but you? And there is none upon earth that I desire besides you. My flesh and my heart fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. He has this moment of doubt, and then he realizes the reality that those people who are living however they want, they're headed straight towards the consequences. What kind of consequences do I want? I want the consequences of someone who trusted God. I want the consequences of someone who says this kind of a statement to God. Whom have I in heaven but you? And there is none upon earth that I desire besides you. You see, he was just, a part of him, he was just desiring the lives of those who were living wicked lives. And now he wakes up and he realizes, I don't want that. There's no one I desire besides you. I don't want anyone else's life. I want this life. I don't want anyone else to lead me. I want you to lead me. God, I trust in you. You might be going through a period of your time right now. Maybe you've gone through it before. You'll go through it again in all likelihood. Or you start to wonder and doubt and ask yourself, am I doing the right thing? If you're following God, you're doing the right thing. But Marco, it's so difficult. You're still doing the right thing. Marco, it's costing so much sacrifice and struggle and hardship and this emotional and spiritual burden is so much for me. You're doing the right thing. You see, life is not about doing what is easy. It is about doing what is right. God has not given us this Christian life so that it would be easy for us and so that it would be holy, just, right, what He would have it to be. And nothing about the life of Jesus was easy, but everything about His life was right. And look at the reward that God gave Him. Hebrews 12, verse number 1 and 2. So what I want to encourage you with this week is in your prayer life, when you pray to God, ask Him to help, ask Him to remind you that when you're suffering with this kind of a temptation, when you're suffering with the questioning of, am I doing what is right? Ask Him to help you to have the kind of mindset, to have the kind of heart that will know in that very moment of doubt, I am doing what is right. But also when you pray to God, thank Him. Thank Him that He's given you instructions, that He's given you a life where you can know without a shadow of a doubt, that you are doing what is right. I want to encourage you this week especially, don't just ask God for help, but pray prayers of thanksgiving. God, thank you that you've given me the way to know that what I'm doing for you, this is right. And when all else may be around me trying to get me to doubt, I know this is right. This is correct. God, thank you for allowing me to understand these things, for giving me your word so that I would understand these things. And secondly, and along the lines of the word, keep Psalm 73 in your heart when it comes to this. Please remember Psalm 73. Remember the beginning when he talks about the jealousy that he feels, the envy he felt. Remember the middle when he starts to come to his senses. And then remember the end, this moment of resolution when he proclaims this love for God. Whom have I in heaven but you? And there is none upon earth that I desire besides you. My flesh and my heart fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. Keep Psalm 73 in your mind. Keep it in your heart. Write it down. Put it somewhere where you can see it in your house. Remember, I need God, especially when I'm doubting. I need to remember this. I need God more than I'll ever need anything. Doesn't matter what it is. And thirdly, as you go throughout your life, live this way. Don't live this life with a jealousy for those who are headed head first into the consequences of the sinful, evil things that they're doing. Live this life as someone who is living for the hereafter, for the eternity, and not just trying to live for a life of comfort now. Live this life trusting God, loving Him, and serving Him every single day. And if and when the moment comes when you doubt, remember Psalm 73. Remember the reality. Remember that all actions have consequences. What do you want your consequences to be? I love you very much. Thank you for taking the time to join me today. Pray it's been a blessing to you. Lord willing, see you next week. Take care.